Welcome back to Refrestos. I'm Jordan, and I'm stupid enough to be putting a Mercedes 5-litre M113 into my 1984 Ford Capri. So this is episode 6, I think. I'm definitely dragging this out. At this rate, it's going to be a lot of episodes. But hopefully this episode will be a nice milestone, because last episode we made the engine mounts. This episode, first thing we're doing, we're dropping the engine onto the engine mounts, seeing how much I might have messed up, and then I'm moving on to mounting up and messing up the transmission as well. Yay! So yeah, I think we should crack on with that really and make some progress. So what I've got here is some high tensile M8 bolts. I'm going to go around, bolt the mounts to the block, and start bolting the makeshift mounts onto a cross member to see how they fit. Well, there we have it. The engine is now sitting on its mounts. But there is one slight issue. The engine is also now touching the steering rack. So I know I had allowed for a gap for it to shrink, or like it sag down, but obviously not enough for that. So I can remake the engine mounts? No thanks. Or I could be a bit agricultural, and what I've done is I fabricated some almost circle 6mm spacer plates. So they will go between the engine mount and the engine mount, or the actual bobbin and the engine mount part of the engine. And that will then space it up by, I don't know, say 3-4mm each side again, which might give me a bit more clearance here. And then what I will do at some point is I will shave down the fins on the back at hitting here on the sump a little bit. It's just an extra bit of clearance. You know, I could raise the engine up a fair bit, but that's going to hinder me more on the engine cover, strut brace, gearbox, everything else. So it needs to sit as low as possible. I know some of you in previous videos have mentioned about the anti-drive kit for the front AIB. I need to look into that, but yeah, that was basically my intention. So if I can get a kit which goes on there, even better. Because I do not want to move the steering rack any further. Obviously I've already moved it X amount down, which might slightly mess up my UJ here. Probably not. I'm hoping not, because there's obviously a bit of play. But if I move the whole rack down, then I get the whole nightmare of moving a whole lot, which I don't want to do. So yeah, I'm going to try to fit these little spacers now, which means I'll take the weight back off the mounts of the engine, remove all the mounts and get them back on again. Cheers! I'll see you in 2 seconds once I've done that. Well, that was a success. So we've got the little 6mm plates in here on the Agri engine mounts. I don't think these engine mounts could look much more agricultural unless I hung them up with baler twine. But I don't care. They're strong. They work fine. And this little slot I left for letting water out is perfect. Every time you drop the washer inside, you need to feed it back out again to put it back on the stud. Excellent. We've now got probably about a 8mm gap there. This is probably a bit more than I wanted, but I guess by the time the engine mounts sag, engine moving, whatnot, it's safe. So provided now that's not going to hinder the gearbox, we'll go with that. So that leads us on to next task, the gearbox. So I think first thing to not be, well, this shifter and all that's got to come off, because I need to get the gearbox up in place and mounted where it needs to sit first before I worry about this kind of rubbish. And it's just going to be in my way entirely. So let's pull this off a minute and then look at how we're going to get the gearbox mounted. So now the big thing. Here's 2 gearboxes. So we have a 631, which is the gearbox out of the 2.4, 2.6, whatever it is, V6 Mercedes. And then we've got this 667 here, which is the one out of the 3.2 V6 Mercedes. Both 6-speed gearboxes. Both appear to use the same shifter setup. Both have the same output on them. Now there are some differences. The clutch setup on this one here, for the CLK box, is easier. I can't remember what car this come out of here. But the one out of the CLK box, definitely a nicer setup here, because it's straight to a, rather than come over the gearbox, you're straight hard line to a M10x1 Flexi. Perfect, nice and easy. Sensors all same place. So lengthwise appear the same. Weight wise, that one's definitely a bit heavier. Now what I do notice is that one sits high on the ground, and that's because This whole back casing is very similar, but there is certainly a bit more to it. It appears to be slightly fatter in some areas, and there's this extra bit obviously underneath it, which I'm trying to work out what's different. Something is causing it to sit higher. They don't visually look the same, but maybe it's just the ground. Either way, that's stronger, that box is, and covered in more oil. Great. Now the big question. How does it fit up in here now then? Especially since the engine now sits a smidge higher and is actually sitting on mounts. Well, there's only one way to find out, isn't there? Let's get in and try it. So I just mocked up the gearbox fitment and it almost fits, but needed some more massaging of a tunnel. So I massaged the tunnel more, but what I'm going to quickly do is I've cleaned off the top of the tunnel there. I'm just going to give it a quick spray of some paint in a minute, really roughly. Just like proper crude. Now I'm going to give that 2 seconds to dry. And then when I next put the gearbox up, it will need to massage it any more. Obviously the top of the gearbox will scrape against the paint where it's making contact. And I'll know exactly where the issue is. But I think now that should be pretty much sussed. So if that's sussed, we can start making a mount. She's up in again. Bolted a couple points. Got a bit more clearance now. So she's fitting fairly well. I need to check it's central in a moment. So that leaves us one thing now, angle. Now what I've struggled to do is, unlike when it was on the ground, I can't reliably get an angle from the Capri as to where it's at. Everything I measure tells me different. The ramp obviously isn't even, the arms aren't, you know, dead same height and all that. So I've had to kind of gauge it off eye and what I can read, and I think the Capri is aiming uphill by about a degree, to be honest. Possibly. Something's telling me it's going downhill, but it looks uphill. So if I put this crudely on the back of the output shaft of the gearbox, it reads about, depends how I put it, about 4.3 degrees tilting backwards. So that's telling me it's leaning back 4.4 degrees. Obviously we wanted it somewhere between 3 and 5 degrees, so that would be fine as is. I think when it settles down more to the ground, it's going to be 3 degrees maybe, which I'm hoping is going to be perfect. So that's where the gearbox is going to sit. It's got room to go up, so it's not going to obstruct and hit anything. It's the correct angle. I'll make sure in a moment that it is also central. It should be if I've done the engine mount semi-right, but obviously that was a problem. I could only measure off some things and roughly gauge it when I've done the engine mount, so I'm not 100% confident yet. If anything, it looks at the minute here it needs to shift over a smidge that way. Could just be, yeah, it needs to shift over a smidge, so I might have to adjust the mounts in a moment. And then, this was easy, right up until this thing here. Without the shifter, really easy to make mounts, really easy. With this in the way, it screwed me. So I'm yet undecided how I'm going to do it. I want to really use the factory mounting points on the shell, because it's just by far the easiest. I want the mounts to be removable. I don't want them hanging too low. So I'm yet to work out how I'm going to do that. Whether I run some plate across here up to mounts, whether I run box section across. Obviously originally we were going to repurpose this, and I am still going to partially repurpose this because I want to reuse these ends to make mounts that drop off of here. But now it depends on how we do that. If I had a bit of 10mm plate still, I'd run it across there and it'd be done. But I've only got 6mm, so we'll have to gauge in a minute if that's strong enough or if we can brace it a bit. But I'm going to start sussing out anyway. Get this lined up a minute and we'll suss out how on earth I can do that. That's the last big mounting piece of the puzzle. Really Right, it might look a bit agricultural. That's because it is. But we got some 6mm plate bolted parallel to each other onto the factory Capri mounts. Drops down to 6mm, lower than I want. It's still, I think, similar height to a sump, but there isn't much I can do about it. I could redo and tie a different mount system onto the body at the front here and try and get it a few more higher on the front there, but yeah, I'm pretty much stuck with what I've got, and I wanted to use the factory mounting positions really in this case. So drops down to that. It then comes across this bar, which I said I had before, and then onto a little angled tab with slots in it which go up into the Mercedes gearbox. So I can't see any reason this won't work. It is a bit rough. Well, it's actually not too rough. It's very industrial like, but I think it'll be fine. So I'm going to tack it up now in place, take it off, and then can weld them up on the bench. Yay! And then the gearbox might be sitting in the car for the first time by itself, which would be amazing. So let's crack on and do that now. All welded up and on the car. So I'm not an expert engineer, and it's very agricultural, and I still need to weld up these holes at some point, but that's not for yet. However, it works. I know it sits a bit low. To be fair, the exhaust is going to sit probably a bit low, and the exhaust might be around here. And actually, to be fair, it might give me a nice place to put an exhaust bracket onto as well. It's like a little hanger, might help. But because this stupid linkage here, which has to stay because it's quite fancy and is a vital part of a shifting setup on this gearbox, I ain't got much choice. My only other option obviously would have been to build something out of here, which then comes up here, which I could have done a bit smaller, but I'm sticking with this for now. I can always change it in the future if I want, and I can save possibly 1.5 inches on clearance, but that's about it. And even then, you've still got the oil drain, the gearbox drain plug there, and the sump and everything else, so it's always going to sit low. I can't do much about that, and I don't intend on pushing the bonnet up and cutting out the whole tunnel. Doesn't seem worth it. So, gearbox is mounted. So for the first time ever now in this car, this M113, it's M112 gearbox is sitting by itself. Engine is sitting by itself. We've achieved a lot in this one episode. I need to get the anti-dive kit to work out this front AIB desperately, really, because I'm fed up of this. I want to better push the car around again. I need to move out of the way soon for that hiding in the background there. Yeah, so I think that's what I've been waiting to do, and I've not been able to do it until the gearbox and the engine's been in. I think we should try it. And this is what we call a very happy Jordan. Look at that! Oh wow. It fits. Now I was told by one of the people who, another person wants to do this, so one person's already started doing this. Engine cover doesn't fit. Well, we've obviously, to be fair, we've done quite a few things different. Supposedly their crank pulley was fouled in the AIB. No idea how they've done that and all that stuff, but mine's nowhere near it. But we got it, and even the strut brace fits. Now I was willing to sacrifice the strut brace just to have an engine in there, but I could have the engine, the cover, and the strut brace. Incredible. And look at the fitment. Almost like it's made for it. Obviously there's so much more to suss out and work out in this yet, but I am now buzzing. I guess this front suspension obviously isn't correct yet. There still needs to be more weight on the front end. But we can have a quick try a minute and just see what degrees the engine's sitting at to see how wrong I've got it. Let's try that a second. Now I'm sure you guys probably can't see again, but let's just try and pin that up to there and work out what kind of angle we've got it at. How far have we got this wrong a minute? Where is that? So it is going to be... So according to this, we've got it sitting at about 3.5 degrees leaning backwards. Now we want it to get between 3 and 5 degrees. So I'd say that's spot on, especially by the time the front end drops down a bit more with the weight. That's perfect. Ho-ho! Success. It's almost like I planned that. Maybe not. To say I am absolutely buzzing would not even come close to it. Obviously this before the start with being... I know I'm very near the start still, but this being a sort of an idea, a lot of research on the internet to work out that, from what I could find at the time, no one had tried this, and that this engine might be worth trying to fit, to actually buying a car, buying another engine, buying a gearbox, buying another gearbox, and all these parts, and now we are on a 7th episode of trying to make this fit in the car. Now, I've done multiple engine conversions. Obviously I've put in this, the Pinto, the Cosworth, my twin turbo, the Cosworth. I put 20 valve turbos a few times into Mark II Golf, started doing a Mark I Scirocco with that, and all this stuff. But they've never required fabricating engine mounts, or just, you know, the engines have always fitted in the cars because they've been sort of, not factory equivalents, but they've been similar blocks. They've been able to fit in the car, if that makes sense. But this, the Mercedes M113, has nothing to do with a Ford Capri whatsoever. So it was completely out of gamble. I risked buying the car, the engine, all that, and then tearing everything apart in the hopes that it would fit. Obviously we've been through a few little stepping stones, gone, oh, that won't fit, we need to do this, that and that. But currently, that engine is in that bay. That gearbox is in that car. No shifter, no wiring, no plumbing, nothing yet, but it's there. And now we can confirm it fits. It doesn't work, but it fits. So I am over the moon. I thank you guys for all the positive comments so far and support, and all of you excited about this build. I'm buzzing for it, and there's plenty more progress to come on this. So I think now I might mess around with a shifter and a prop just because they're a bit of a pain in the ass to do. Get them out of the way. Things like the brakes don't bother me one bit. The wiring, although that's going to be a lot of work because I want to do a nice, good job of it. That doesn't bother me one bit. That's easy for me. Fuel system, easy. Cooling system, got to find a radiator still that could fit in here and make a setup to make it fit and be tidy, but that's relatively easy. So the hardest part was trying to fit that engine and trying to fit it in the right place. And obviously we don't know that yet until I got it on the road, but it seems like it's going to work. We're going to do it. So, I thank you guys for watching. Obviously, there's all the previous episodes on this. There's loads of content on the car beforehand when I've done the Cosworths, I didn't actually record the turbo setup. That was pre my YouTube days. But there's all sorts of videos of me tearing the engine apart and doing all sorts on it. So you can look back on them. Obviously, there's all the modern Range Rovers, the Range Rover Classics, my Turbo Technics, my Golf builds. All that stuff is on my channel and plenty more. And just so much more to come. So thank you guys for supporting me. Subscribe to the channel for plenty more. Drop the video a like, give me a comment, tell me how stupid you think I am. I think I'm pretty stupid for fitting that, but I'm pretty happy for doing it. And hopefully I'll see you guys next time. I've been Jordan. Cheers.